We used to have this hand-me-down couch. Well, actually, we had several hand-me-down couches. We had one, and you'll like this. We had one, and I can't really tell you what color it was. It was sort of brown and sort of green. And I'm not colorblind, by the way. It was sort of brown, sort of green, depending on the light that was shining in. I remember toward the end of its life, this couch, I mean, it was broke down looking. You know, it was one of those that it looked like an invisible person was always sitting on it because the cushions were folding up. You know, you know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, like we had just packed, 14 bowling balls on this couch or something. I mean, it was broke down. But I remember toward the end of its life, it had so many stains on the cushions. There was only one way you could flip the cushions so that you didn't see stains, right? I think it had 3 cushions, and all of them had a messed up side, And it got really tricky because sometimes it was like putting together a puzzle. If you took them off to vacuum out of the couch or clean or whatever, and I say I didn't really do that. My wife did that. I've told you before I'm not much around the house. But when you took those off, it was like a puzzle trying to put it back together because you knew there was some way that it would all go that you wouldn't see any stains. But sometimes it would take forever to figure that out. And I remember it was always worse when we had somebody coming over, And because the couch was so wore out, we'd have to clean it before people came over because of the way I told you it looked like there was invisible people sitting on it. Well, you could see the gaps, between the back of the couch and everybody. You know what I'm talking about. You have had couches like that. You had no people who've had couches like that. We'd have to clean it, and we were always so scared. Andrew was always so conscientious about when we put those pillows back on there. We have to make sure that the stains aren't showing. We didn't want anybody to see that about us because somehow it would make us feel less, I don't know, important or dirty or something. But we spent so much time trying to hide those things. We were embarrassed, so we just tried to act better. And that's what we do as Christians. We spend so much of our lives trying to act like that we're cleaner than we probably really are. Because deep down we're ashamed of who we are, who we were. So we try to act like we got all our stuff together. When in reality, for the most of us, we still don't have our stuff together. And there is nothing special about us other than we just know the man who can cover up our stains. But when we act like we ain't got them, nobody else can see that man through us. What if the world would be more impressed with our stains than they are with this persona that we try to create that we've got things all figured out? To be honest, some of the greatest Christians I know are people that have a story that is way worse than probably yours is. If you think your life is messed up, man, there are people whose lives are so messed up, if you heard them tell a story, your chin would hit the floor. And some of those same people with those kind of scars and those kind of stains are some of God's greatest people because they don't get wrapped up in themselves. All they do is say, look at who I was and look at where God brought me from. And people's lives, hundreds of people, thousands of people in some cases, are changed just because they're willing to show the world their stains. The world, I promise you, is more impressed with your stains and your story from where God brought you than they are with the persona you try to put on to act like you've got this whole thing figured out. When you try to act like you have this thing figured out, like you are, saved, sanctified, on your way to heaven and have been since you saved in 19 and whenever it was, do you realize when you do that and you try to act like you have this thing all figured out, do you realize that you are doing that because of you? Do you realize that's pride? That is pride because you're trying to bring glory to yourself. You are wrapped up in your ability to put this thing on and to show the world that you have it all figured out, and you're trying to bring glory to yourself When in reality, and Paul says it in what we just read, he says God gets glory when he sees how messed up we are, because that's what makes God who he is. When people know who I was and they see what God did in my life and they see who I am now in him, he gets the glory. His strength is made perfect in my weakness. If his strength is made perfect in our weakness, why do we act like we don't have any weakness?